So, this woman spends her entire career saving babies. Literally, she's a labor and delivery nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the most prestigious medical facilities on the entire planet. Her whole job, her entire existence, is dedicated to bringing life into the world, to protecting the most vulnerable, fragile little humans you can possibly imagine. She's the person you trust when you're at your most terrified, the calm voice in the room when everything is going chaotic. She is, by every definition, a professional nurturer. But then, on a random Tuesday in January, this same woman, this perfect suburban mother, this medical professional, waits for her husband to leave the house to grab some takeout. And the second his car pulls out of the driveway, she doesn't start the laundry, she doesn't prep dinner, she doesn't scroll TikTok. She takes her 3 children, 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan, down to the basement. And one by one, she wraps exercise bands around their little necks and squeezes until they stop breathing. Boom, just like that. 3 lives extinguished by the person who gave them life. Then she walks upstairs, opens a window on the 2nd floor, and jumps out into the snowy backyard, trying to end it all. This isn't a horror movie. This isn't a dark episode of Black Mirror. This is the real, twisted, absolutely gut-wrenching story of Lindsay Clancy. And the scariest part? Depending on who you ask, she's either a cold-blooded monster who planned the execution of her family, or she's a victim of a healthcare system that pumped her full of so many drugs she didn't even know what planet she was on. So buckle up, because this story is going to mess with your head, break your heart, and make you question everything you think you know about perfect families. The picture-perfect illusion. Let's rewind a bit, because to understand how we ended up in that basement, you have to look at the life Lindsay seemed to be living. If you looked at her social media, you'd hate her. Not because she was mean, but because her life looked too good. You know the type, the Duxbury, Massachusetts mom. For those of you who don't know, Duxbury is nice. It's coastal elite nice. It's the kind of place where the lawns are manicured with nail scissors, the schools are better than most colleges, and the biggest crime wave is usually someone leaving their golden retriever off-leash at the beach. Lindsay and Patrick were living the American dream with a capital D. Patrick worked in IT, making good money. Lindsay was a star nurse. They had the beautiful house with the white trim, the picket fence vibes, the whole 9 yards. And the kids? Oh man, the kids were painfully cute. Cora, the oldest, was 5. She was the leader of the pack, the one with the big personality. Dawson was 3, the middle child, totally obsessed with trucks and dinosaurs, looking up to her big sister. And then there was little Callan, the baby, barely 8 months old. Lindsay's Instagram was a shrine to this life. Photos of family apple-picking trips, smiling beach days, the kids in matching pajamas, captions about how much she loved her little squad. She wasn't just posting photos, she was curating a reality. To the outside world, she was supermom. She was the woman who could work a 12-hour shift at the hospital, come home, and still have the energy to bake organic, gluten-free muffins for the bake sale. But here's the thing about social media. It's a lie. It's a highlight reel. Nobody posts the panic attacks. Nobody posts the 3 a.m. crying jags where you're staring at the ceiling wondering if you're losing your mind. And behind those filters and those smiling emojis, Lindsay Clancy was slowly, quietly falling apart. The descent into madness. It all seemingly started after the birth of her 3rd child, Callan. Now, anyone who's had a kid or knows someone who's had a kid knows that the baby blues are real. Hormones go crazy, sleep is a distant memory, and you feel like you're running a marathon through quicksand. But this was different. Lindsay wasn't just sad, she was anxious, like skin crawling, heart pounding, something bad is going to happen anxious. And because she was a nurse, she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She sought help. She went to the doctors. She said, "Hey, I'm not feeling right. Fix me." And this is where the story turns into a raging indictment of the mental health care system. Because over the course of roughly 4 months, from October 2022 to January 2023, Lindsay Clancy was prescribed a cocktail of drugs that would knock out a horse.
We're talking about Zoloft, Valium, Trazodone, Ativan, Klonopin, Prozac, Seroquel, Lamictal. I'm not listing ingredients for a chaotic smoothie here. These are heavy, heavy psychotropic medications. And according to her defense team, she was prescribed roughly 13 different drugs in that short window. 13! Think about that. If you take one new medication, it takes weeks for your body to adjust. You get side effects. You feel weird. Now imagine tossing 13 of them into your system in a matter of months. Up, down, uppers, downers, mood stabilizers, anti-anxiety meds, sleeping pills. Her brain wasn't being treated, it was being put in a blender. She told people she felt like a zombie. She said she felt broken. At one point, she voluntarily checked herself into a psychiatric facility because she was having suicidal thoughts. She was trying. She was literally screaming for help in the most responsible way possible. She wasn't hiding it from Patrick. She was telling him, "I don't feel love anymore. I feel flat. I feel numb." Can you imagine looking at your own children, the people you would die for, and feeling nothing, just a cold gray void where the love is supposed to be? That is terrifying. That is the kind of psychological torture that breaks a person. And the doctors, they kept switching the meds. Oh, the Zoloft isn't working? Try Prozac. That making you anxious? Here's some Ativan. Can't sleep? Take Trazodone. It was trial and error, but the error part was happening in the brain of a mother with 3 young children. Patrick, to his credit, was trying to hold it down. He was working from home, watching the kids, trying to support his wife. He was living in a house that was slowly turning into a powder keg, but he thought they were doing the right things. They were seeing the experts, they were taking the pills, they were trusting the process. But the process was broken. The good days are the scariest. Here's the thing about mental health crises that movies get wrong. In movies, the crazy person is always acting crazy. They're screaming at walls, their hair is messy, they're holding a knife. In real life, the scary days are the quiet ones, the days where everything seems fine. January 24th, a Tuesday. By all accounts, it started out as a surprisingly good day. Lindsay seemed clearer than she had in weeks. She was up, she was active, she was engaging with the kids. She took Cora to the pediatrician for a checkup. Totally normal mom stuff. She came home and played with the kids in the snow. They went out into that pristine Duxbury backyard and built a snowman. There are pictures of this, pictures taken hours before the murders. Just a mom and her kids playing in the snow, smiling. If you looked at those pictures, you'd think, oh, she's back. The meds are working. She's turned a corner. But some psychologists will tell you that this sudden improvement is actually a massive red flag. Sometimes when a person decides to end it, when they formulate a plan, they feel a sense of relief. The struggle is over because they know the end is coming. The anxiety drops because the decision has been made. Was that what was happening? Was she building a snowman because she wanted one last happy memory? Or was she just having a genuinely good morning that snapped into a psychotic break later? We don't know for sure, but we know what happened next. Around 4 p.m., the normalcy continued. They discussed dinner. Lindsay suggested getting takeout. Now, this sounds mundane, right? Hey, honey, let's get Thai food. But in the timeline of a murder case, this takeout order is the smoking gun. Lindsay opened her phone and used Apple Maps to look up the restaurant. It was a place called 3V in Plymouth. She checked the menu. She looked up how long it would take to drive there. Prosecutors later argued, why would a woman in the middle of a psychotic break, someone who has supposedly lost touch with reality, have the presence of mind to calculate travel time for takeout? It's a valid question, and it's the question that divides the entire world on this case. Is checking Google Maps proof of sanity, or can you be functionally psychotic, able to operate a phone but completely detached from moral reality? Patrick, bless his heart, didn't suspect a thing. He probably thought, great, she wants takeout, she's hungry, she's taking initiative, this is a win. So they put in the order, and Lindsay tells him, hey, can you also swing by CVS and pick up some Pedialyte for Callan? The baby had been a little under the weather. Again, supermom behavior, caring for the sick kid. So Patrick packs up. He grabs his keys. He probably kisses her goodbye. He probably says, I'll be back in 30 minutes. He walks out the door. He gets in his car. He backs out of the driveway. And the clock starts ticking. The window of opportunity. Patrick Clancy leaves the house around 5:15 p.m. He is gone for roughly 30 to 40 minutes. That is the window. That is the sliver of time Lindsay Clancy had to destroy her entire universe. Now, put yourself in that house. It's a winter evening in New England. It's already dark outside. The house is warm. The TV might be on. The kids are probably running around, maybe asking where Daddy went. Whatever mask Lindsay was wearing when Patrick was home, it dropped. We don't know exactly what was said. We don't know if she cried. We don't know if she screamed. But we know she went into execution mode. She didn't use a gun. She didn't use a knife. She used exercise bands. You know the ones, those stretchy resistance bands you use for home workouts.
Think about the physicality of that. Think about the brutality. Strangling someone is intimate. It's not pulling a trigger from across the room. You have to be right there. You have to feel the life leaving them. You have to look into their eyes. And she didn't just do it to one. She did it to Cora, 5 years old. A child who probably trusted her mother implicitly. A child who probably asked, "Mommy, what are you doing?" She did it to Dawson, 3 years old. And she did it to Callan, a baby, a literal infant who couldn't even run away if he wanted to. She did this 3 times, back to back to back. The prosecutors say this proves she knew exactly what she was doing. They argue that strangling 3 children takes time. It takes effort. You have to strangle one, watch them go limp, and then make the conscious decision to move on to the next one. You have to reset. You have to re-engage. It's not a momentary snap where you black out and wake up and everyone is dead. It is a process. But the defense? They argue this is proof of how severe her psychosis was. They say she was hearing voices, that she thought she had to do this. Maybe she thought she was saving them from something worse. In the twisted logic of psychosis, death can sometimes look like a rescue. If she believed, truly believed, that the devil was coming for them or that they were trapped in some hellscape only she could see, then in her broken mind, this might have been an act of mercy. Does that make it okay? Hell no, but it changes the narrative from evil to tragic. Real quick, hit subscribe because we are wading into some of the darkest waters of the human psyche and you're gonna wanna see where this goes. So, the kids are in the basement. Silence falls over the house. The screaming is done. The struggling is done. Lindsay is now alone in the quiet. What goes through her head in that moment? Does the psychosis lift? Does she realize what she's done? Or is she still in the grip of the delusion? She goes upstairs. She goes into the master bedroom. She locks the door. She opens the window. It's the 2nd floor, about 20 feet up. Below is the backyard, hard frozen ground, maybe some snow. She climbs onto the sill, and she jumps. The return. While this nightmare is unfolding, Patrick is at CVS. He's buying the Pedialyte. He's at the restaurant picking up the food. He's probably checking his phone, maybe texting Lindsay, "On my way back." He has no idea that his life has already ended. He's just a guy running errands. He drives home. He pulls into the driveway. It's quiet. He walks into the house. Lindsay? Kids? Silence. Nothing is more terrifying to a parent than absolute silence in a house that should have 3 kids in it. Silence is heavy. It presses on your ears. He goes upstairs. The bedroom door is locked. That's weird. Why would she lock the bedroom door? He forces it open, or maybe he goes around. He finds the window open. He looks down, and there she is, lying in the backyard, broken. He rushes down to her. She's conscious, but barely. She's injured. Her back is broken. She's paralyzed, though he doesn't know the extent yet. He's frantic. He's calling 911. "My wife jumped out the window. She tried to kill herself." At this moment, Patrick thinks he is dealing with a suicide attempt. He thinks the tragedy is that his wife tried to die. He doesn't know about the basement yet. On the 911 call, you can hear the panic in his voice. He's asking her, "Lindsay, where are the kids?" This is the question that haunts everyone. Where are the kids?
And Lindsay, lying there in the snow, broken and bleeding, allegedly says something like, "in the basement." She doesn't say they're playing. She doesn't say they're watching TV. In the basement. Patrick leaves her side. He runs into the house. He runs to the basement door. He goes down the stairs. And then the 911 dispatchers hear a sound that they will probably never forget. It is a scream, but not just a scream. It is the sound of a man's soul being ripped out of his body. It is a primal, guttural roar of pure agony. He finds them, Cora, Dawson, Callan, all three of them with the bands still around their necks. He starts screaming for help. Guys, guys! He's begging the first responders to come down. He's trying to remove the bands. He's trying to do CPR. He's a dad trying to fix the unfixable. The police and paramedics rush in. It is absolute chaos. They are grabbing these limp little bodies, running them out to the ambulances. They are doing compressions on a baby. They are shouting orders. Can you imagine being one of those first responders? You walk into a nice suburban house expecting a medical call, and you walk out carrying a dying child. That is the kind of trauma that ends careers. That is the kind of stuff you drink to forget. Patrick is in the middle of it all, living through a nightmare that defies description. One minute he was buying Pedialyte, the next minute his entire family is being carried out on stretchers. The aftermath of the moment. They rush the kids to the hospital. Cora and Dawson are pronounced dead pretty much immediately. They had been without oxygen for too long. Callan, the baby, holds on. He's flown to Boston Children's Hospital. He has a heartbeat, but his brain activity is almost non-existent. He fights for 3 days. 3 days where Patrick probably sat by his bedside, praying for a miracle, praying that he wouldn't lose absolutely everything. But on Friday, Callan died too. Patrick Clancy lost his entire family in roughly 45 minutes. Lindsay survived. She's paralyzed from the waist down from the fall. She wakes up in a hospital bed, handcuffed with a police officer at the door. And this is where the story shifts from a tragedy to a war. Because immediately, and I mean immediately, the internet took sides. On one side, you have the hang her crowd, people who say, I don't care how sad you are, you don't kill your kids. You don't plan it out. You don't calculate takeout times. She is a monster who wanted a child-free life and took the nuclear option. On the other side, you have the system failed her crowd. Other mothers, nurses, people who have felt that postpartum darkness. They say she was sick, she was drugged, she was failed by every doctor she saw. She didn't kill them, the illness killed them. And stuck in the middle is Patrick, a man who issued a statement days after the murders that shocked the world. He didn't call for vengeance, he didn't scream for her blood. He said, I forgive Lindsay. He said the real Lindsay was generously loving and caring. She loved our children. He blamed the disease, not the woman. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine holding that level of grace in your heart while you're planning 3 tiny funerals? Is he a saint or is he in denial? We're going to get into that because as the legal case started to spin up, things got even messier. The prosecution came out swinging with details about her journals, her resentment towards the kids, and that damn takeout order. The defense came back with the medication list and expert testimony about command hallucinations. And then there's the question everyone is asking. If she was so crazy she didn't know what she was doing, why did she have the clarity to send her husband on an errand first? This case isn't just about one woman. It's about how we treat mothers. It's about the pills we throw at problems. And it's about the terrifying realization that the human brain is a fragile ticking time bomb that can go off without warning. Be honest with me in the comments right now. If you were Patrick, could you forgive her? Could you look at the woman who killed your children and say, I love you, I forgive you? Because I'm gonna be real with you, I don't know if I could. I think I'd want to burn the world down. But Patrick didn't. And what happened next in the courtroom turned this tragedy into a legal circus. We need to talk about the arraignment. We need to talk about the Zoom call where Lindsay lay in her hospital bed, masked and neck braced, while the prosecutors read out the minute-by-minute details of how she strangled her babies. We need to talk about the defense attorney, Kevin Reddington, who basically put the pharmaceutical industry on trial. And then there's the letters of support that flooded in from mothers all over the world, begging the court for mercy. This story is far from over. In fact, the legal battle is just getting started.
So, we left off with Patrick Clancy screaming in his basement, his entire world destroyed in 45 minutes, while his wife lay broken in the snow outside. 3 children dead, a mother paralyzed, a father left with absolutely nothing but questions that might never have answers. If you thought part 1 was dark, part 2 is where the legal system gets involved, and honestly, it's where things get even more twisted, because now we aren't just looking at a tragedy, we're looking at a battle for the narrative. Was this murder, or was it medicine gone wrong? The arraignment from hell. Fast forward to February 7th, 2023, the arraignment. Usually an arraignment is a standard, boring legal procedure. You walk into a courtroom, you plead not guilty, the judge sets bail, and everyone goes home. Not this time. This arraignment happened on Zoom because Lindsay Clancy was lying in a hospital bed at Brigham and Women's Hospital. She was paralyzed from the chest down. She was wearing a neck brace and a face mask. She couldn't move. She could barely speak. Picture this image, a woman who used to be a vibrant, athletic, smiling nurse, now reduced to a motionless figure in a hospital bed, staring blankly at a camera while lawyers discuss how she strangled her children. It looked like a scene from a dystopian medical thriller. The prosecution came out swinging, and when I say swinging, I mean they brought a sledgehammer. Plymouth County Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague didn't paint a picture of a confused, psychotic mother. She painted a picture of a cold, calculating killer. Sprague laid out a timeline that was absolutely chilling in its precision. She argued that Lindsay wasn't hearing voices, she was making plans. Remember the takeout order? Sprague hammered that point home. She pointed out that Lindsay looked up the menu for the 3V restaurant. She looked up the maps. She knew exactly how long it would take Patrick to drive there and back. The prosecution's argument was essentially, if you are crazy enough to kill your kids because of demons, you are too crazy to figure out Google Maps. They argued that she created the window of opportunity deliberately. She sent Patrick to CVS for Pedialyte and stool softener, which, let's be real, are the most mundane, sane items you can possibly buy. If you're in the middle of a psychotic break where reality is melting, are you worried about your kid's constipation? Sprague argued that Lindsay was lucid, she was coherent, she spoke to her husband on the phone during the errand and sounded completely normal. Patrick himself said she seemed fine. And then came the journals. Oh yes, she kept journals, and the prosecution read excerpts that made everyone in that Zoom call hold their breath. In her writings, Lindsay allegedly expressed resentment toward the 2 older children, Cora and Dawson. She wrote that they were preventing her from loving the baby, Callan, the way she wanted to. She wrote about feeling overwhelmed by them. Now, let's be fair. Every parent has days where they want to scream. Every parent has days where they think, I love these kids, but if I hear the Baby Shark song one more time, I'm going to lose it. But writing it down, in the context of a murder trial, it looks bad. It looks like motive. The prosecution argued that this wasn't psychosis, it was rage. It was a mother who was done with the noise, the chaos, and the demands of motherhood, and who decided to reset her life in the most horrific way possible. Sprague dropped another bombshell. Apparently, Lindsay had asked her husband specifically to check on the takeout order to ensure he stayed out of the house longer. She was buying time. She was watching the clock. When you hear that, it's hard not to see a monster. It sounds premeditated. It sounds evil. It sounds like she knew exactly what she was doing and wanted to make sure she had enough time to finish the job before Patrick walked back through that door. But then it was Kevin Reddington's turn. Kevin Reddington is Lindsay's defense attorney, and he is a shark. He didn't try to argue that she didn't do it. There's no mystery here. We know who killed the kids. Instead, he went after the doctors. He went after the system. He went after the pills. Reddington's argument was simple. Lindsay was involuntarily intoxicated. She didn't kill her kids, the drugs killed her kids. He listed the medication again: Zoloft, Valium, Trazodone, Ativan, Klonopin, Prozac, Seroquel, Lamictal. He pointed out that in the weeks leading up to the tragedy, Lindsay was being turned into a chemical experiment. He argued that she had postpartum psychosis, a rare, severe condition that affects about 1 out of 1,000 deliveries. It's not just depression, it's a break from reality. Women with PPP often have delusions. They hallucinate. They believe their children are demons, or that they have to kill them to save them from Satan, or that God is commanding them to do it. Reddington claimed that Lindsay heard a man's voice telling her to kill the children and then kill herself. He argued that this was a command hallucination. When you have a command hallucination, you don't feel like you have a choice. It's like a general giving an order to a soldier. You just do it. He described a woman who was desperately seeking help, but was failed at every turn. He said she was taking the meds exactly as prescribed, but the side effects were turning her into a zombie. He said she had homicidal and suicidal ideation and told the doctors, but they just swapped her pills and sent her home. One of the most heartbreaking details the defense brought up was a conversation Lindsay had with her husband days before the murders. She told him she felt like she had no emotion. She felt dead inside. Reddington argued, this is not a murderer. This is a woman who was chemically lobotomized by a healthcare system that throws prescriptions at women instead of actually treating them. He attacked the prosecution's Google Maps theory by saying people with psychosis can still function in rote ways. You can walk, talk, and open doors, but your moral compass, your understanding of right and wrong, that is completely gone. Imagine being in a dream. In a dream, you can walk, talk, and open doors. But if you kill someone in a dream, you don't feel guilty because it's a dream. The defense argued that Lindsay was living in a waking nightmare where the rules of reality simply didn't apply. The Army of Moms. This is where the story spilled out of the courtroom and into the living rooms of every family in America. As soon as the details came out, the internet exploded. But it wasn't the usual hate fest you see with child killers. Thousands of women stood up and said, "I am Lindsay Clancy." Hashtags started trending. Hashtag stand with Lindsay. Hashtag postpartum psychosis awareness. Mothers started sharing their own horror stories. Women confessed to standing over their babies' cribs with dark thoughts. Women admitted to driving their cars and thinking, what if I just swerved into that tree? Women talked about how doctors dismissed their pain, threw Zoloft at them, and told them to get more sleep. It became a movement, a terrified, angry, grieving movement of mothers who looked at Lindsay Clancy and didn't see a monster, they saw themselves on their worst day. They argued that we put impossible pressure on mothers. We expect them to bounce back immediately. We expect them to work, clean, cook, and raise perfect children, all while dealing with hormones that are doing backflips. And when they break, we demonize them. Letters flooded the judge's chambers. Letters from nurses, doctors, teachers, grandmothers. They were begging for mercy. They were saying, if you lock her up for life, you are criminalizing mental illness. You are punishing a woman who has already lost everything. But then there was the other side, the justice for the kids side, and they were just as loud. They said, stop making the killer the victim. They pointed out that plenty of women have postpartum depression, plenty of women have psychosis. They don't strangle 3 children with exercise bands. They argued that the I am Lindsay Clancy movement was offensive to the memory of Cora, Dawson, and Callan. These were real human beings. They had names, they had favorite toys, they had lives ahead of them, and their mother stole that from them. People asked, if this was a father who killed his kids because he was stressed and on meds, would we be sending him love letters, or would we be calling for the electric chair? It's a brutal question. Is there a double standard because she's a pretty white suburban nurse? If she lived in a trailer park, or if she was a different race, or if she was a man, would the army of moms be rallying for her?
I want you to really think about that. Be honest. Does privilege play a role in who we empathize with? Tell me in the comments, because this debate tore the internet apart. The judge's decision. Back in court, the judge had to make a call. The prosecution wanted her held without bail. They argued she was a flight risk, even though she's paralyzed, and a danger to herself and others. The defense wanted her transferred to a specialized medical facility where she could get rehabilitation for her spinal injury and psychiatric treatment. The judge ultimately decided that Lindsay would remain in the hospital for her medical needs, but she would be technically held without bail. Later, she was transferred to Duxbury Hospital, a state-run facility that handles both medical and psychiatric patients. She is still there today, lying in a bed, paralyzed, trapped in her own body, trapped in her own thoughts. Imagine waking up every single morning in a hospital room. You can't move your legs, and the first thought that hits your brain is, "I killed them." Every day, for the rest of your life. Is that justice? Is that hell? Is it both? The silence of the house, while the lawyers argued and the internet fought. Let's go back to Duxbury. Let's go back to the house with the white trim. Patrick Clancy eventually moved out. I mean, how could you not? How could you ever walk into that basement again? How could you walk past the bedrooms? The community rallied around him in a way that was genuinely beautiful and heartbreaking. A GoFundMe was set up for him, intending to raise a few $1,000s to help with funeral costs. It raised over $1 million. People from all over the world donated. They just wanted to do something. They couldn't bring the kids back, they couldn't fix his broken heart, so they threw money at him, hoping it would cushion the blow even a little bit. Patrick has stayed mostly silent since his initial statement, and honestly, I respect that. What is there to say? He is a man who has to rebuild his entire existence from scratch. He's young, he has decades of life left, but he has to live them with the knowledge that the woman he loved, the woman he built a life with, destroyed everything they made. And yet, he forgave her. That forgiveness is the most confusing part of this entire story for me. It's superhuman. It defies logic. Maybe he knows something we don't. Maybe he saw the zombie state firsthand. Maybe he truly believes that the Lindsay who killed those kids wasn't his wife, but a stranger wearing her face. Or maybe forgiveness is the only way he can survive. Maybe if he let the anger in, it would kill him too. The pharmaceutical nightmare. We need to circle back to the meds for a second, because this is the part of the story that should scare the hell out of everyone, regardless of whether you think she's guilty or not. The trial and error approach to psychiatry is terrifying. Here, take this pill. Oh, you feel suicidal now? Okay, stop that one and take this one instead. We trust doctors. We trust the system. When a doctor says, take this, it will help, we take it. But these drugs alter your brain chemistry. They change who you are. And when you mix them, when you stack them like Jenga blocks, you are playing Russian roulette with your neurotransmitters. If the defense is right, if these drugs caused the psychosis, then who is really to blame? Is it the doctor who wrote the script? Is it the pharmaceutical company? Or is it still the patient? This case could set a massive precedent. If Lindsay Clancy is found not guilty by reason of insanity or involuntary intoxication, it puts the entire medical establishment on trial. It says, you made her this way. But if she's convicted, it says you are responsible for your actions, no matter what chemicals are in your blood. The uncomfortable truth. Here is the darkest thought I have about this case, the one that keeps me up at night. What if both sides are right? What if she was a loving mother who was failed by the system, and she also had a darkness in her that she indulged? What if the meds lowered the inhibition, but the resentment was already there? The prosecution's evidence about the journals suggests she was unhappy. She was struggling with the reality of having 3 kids under 5. That is a hard, grinding life. It's loud, it's messy, it's exhausting. Is it possible that the psychosis just gave permission to the intrusive thoughts she was already having? We like our villains to be pure evil. We like our victims to be pure saints. But Lindsay Clancy is neither. She is a gray blur of tragedy, illness, and horror. She strangled her children. That is a fact. She ended 3 innocent lives. She was also pumped full of drugs and seeking help. That is also a fact. How do you reconcile those 2 things? As of right now, Lindsay Clancy is still awaiting trial. The legal process is slow. It grinds on while she lies in her bed at Duxbury. There will be no happy ending here. Even if she is acquitted, she is paralyzed and her children are dead. She will never run in the grass again. She will never hold a baby again. She is in a prison of her own making, whether it has bars or not. And Patrick has to wake up every day and find a reason to breathe. The house in Duxbury was eventually sold, the toys were cleared out, the silence was left behind. But the story of Lindsay Clancy hangs over every mother who feels sad. It hangs over every father who worries about his wife. It hangs over every doctor holding a prescription pad. It is a reminder that the line between normal life and absolute horror is thinner than a piece of paper. It can be crossed on a Tuesday evening between a pediatrician appointment and a takeout order. And that is the scariest thing of all. If you made it this far, you need to hit subscribe because we cover the stories that the news is too scared to fully unpack. We look at the darkness straight on. This story messed me up. I'm not gonna lie. It makes you want to hug your kids a little tighter. It makes you want to check on your friends who are new moms. So do that. Call your mom. Hug your kid. And if you're struggling, for the love of God, keep screaming until someone actually listens. Because silence is how we end up with tragedies like this. Let me know in the comments, do you think the system killed those kids or did Lindsay? I really want to know where you stand on this, because I flip-flop every single time I read the details. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and try not to let the darkness win. Boom.